What's going on YouTube? This is Gary and Irene, and this is our video on quarantine tank. We have this 5-gallon tank. It's been set up for 2 weeks now, and then we're just going to tell you what we did with it and a couple key points that we should mention. A lot of people don't have quarantine tanks because usually they're extra space, hassle, a little bit off the budget, but there are pretty important reasons why to have a quarantine tank, and we're going to tell you why. So first of all, quarantine tank reduces stress. When your fish been transported from your local fish store, or if you bought it online, it's going to be stressed. It's been in that small bag, been shaken around, and when it reduces stress, because your fish is going to be secluded by itself, it'll lessen the chance of any disease or parasites. So if your fish is very stressful, he'll be susceptible to disease, and then you may end up losing that fish. Secondly, you can use the tank as a treatment tank whenever there's an outbreak in your display tank and you don't want to treat the whole tank because you have sensitive invertebrates. You'd use the quarantine tank to treat it with any medication you'd use for the specific disease. If it was ick, you'd use copper-based medications, ick off, things like that. So it's a measure so you don't have to risk the entire display tank. Next, it's a recovery area for harassed fish. If you have a bully in the tank, you'd include him, or if there's a fish that's badly beaten up, that's been nipped a lot, just put him in the tank so it can recover. And then you can finally use it as a breeding tank. If you have a optimal water quality and a good sized tank, you can definitely use it as a breeding tank. Next, we're going to talk about what size tank is good for you. Okay guys, you have to first consider what fish you're getting before getting the tank, because in a 5-gallon or your specific tank that you're going to get, you have to put an account that later on, if there's anything that goes wrong, hopefully not, you have to put the full size fish that you're getting into the tank. So if you got a little baby grouper that's 3 inches, but then later in time that sucker's fully grown, it's not going to go in there. So you have to put an account what type of fish you're going to get and how big they get. So something like clown gobies, they get like 1.5 inches in full length would be okay in a 5-gallon. So the bigger fish that you're going to get, you're going to have to get a larger tank. Simple as that. Alright guys, this is a few necessary components of your tank. Some of these are already standard in every other tank. Some of them are a little different. First off, you need power heads, circulate the water, make sure there's no dead spots. PVC pipes, you're going to need the pipes so when the stressed fish are introduced into the tank, they have somewhere to hide. You're going to need a heater. You're going to need a filter. You have to make sure that the filter has no carbon. I bought this filter and I didn't realize it had carbon until I got it. So just make sure you get a filter with no carbon, because the carbon is going to counteract with any copper medication and it'll render it useless. A black cover or any paint, they allow the fish to feel more secure as the borders will be black. You can use any cover that you buy at the store or paint, usually acrylic. A net, you're going to need a net. When you use the net, make sure it's only for the quarantine tank. You don't want to use it in your display tank because it's going to have some residue of copper because you're going to be using it for the tank. So You don't want that in the display tank. The lights are optional. They're just mainly so you can see the fish. And test kits. You're going to want to test the water religiously. If not, usually your local fish store will test it for you. And then finally a thermometer just to check your temperature and everything's good. That's about it for the materials. Alright guys, here are some key points to note in the quarantine tank. You want to make sure that there's no live sand or rock because they absorb copper. Any calcium based object will absorb copper, so if you do use it to accommodate for a fish that needs sand to thrive, make sure you don't put it in your display tank because it'll leach. No invertebrates. All invertebrates are going to have to go in the display tank. They will die if it's been medicated, usually. You want to make sure you don't use tap water because the tap water may carry chemicals or chlorine, high phosphates, and that will affect the quality of your water. You want to make sure you use distilled water when you refill the evaporated water. A mark line is pretty helpful. You just, when you first fill in your salt water and you make sure everything's fine, you mark a line where it is, and if it goes down, you know that the water is evaporated, and then you just refill freshly distilled water. You want to keep your fish in the quarantine tank at least a month to 6 weeks, so the ick life cycle has been processed, because it usually lasts around a month to 6 weeks. That's it for the key points, guys. Alright guys, finally for the steps for setting up your quarantine tank, you want to clean all your materials that weren't sealed with vinegar. You want to place the materials in the tank. Make sure you follow your manufacturer's instructions. Fill the tank with salt water that you bought from the local fish store or the mixed salt that you've made. Make sure you follow the instructions as well. And then once that's started, you want to start the nitrogen cycle. We placed food or pieces of shrimp in there. We're against live cycling because the ammonia spikes and the nitrate spikes could potentially kill the fish. That's why usually fish stores try to sell you damsels when you're first starting out, because they're pretty hardy and they could probably survive it, but it's pretty damaging to them. So you just want to place the food, and it's pretty simple. The ammonia, when you place the food, the ammonia spikes, and then there's bacteria that eats the ammonia, and then its product is nitrite, and then again another bacteria eats the nitrite, and then usually the ammonia and nitrite are toxic to your fish, but the final product nitrate in low quantities aren't very toxic. So once the ammonia and the nitrate are at 0 when you test them, and the nitrate are pretty low or 0, you've fully cycled your tank. Usually depends how long it takes. It may take up to a month, or if you buy one of those bacteria additives, it may take less. So here, the circle here is nitrate to ammonia, because when you add fish food, ammonia is created. So that's it. It's pretty simple. Quarantine tanks, they're pretty important. We're gonna upload our next video on painting our tanks. So I hope you guys stay tuned. It's Irene and Gary. Bye.